Horror games often tap into our deepest fears, but when they're rooted in actual events, the terror becomes all the more palpable. Tonight, we're counting down 10 horror games ripped straight from real-life nightmares, unsolved mysteries, twisted experiments, and tragedies that will make you question, could this happen to me? From CIA mind control conspiracies to towns burning underground for decades. Press play if you dare. But fair warning, sleep is optional after this.
Stupid man-thing! You won't live long, even if you run!
Starting at number 10, a town trapped in time, cursed by its dark past. Little Hope resurrects the terror of 17th century witch trials, mirroring the paranoia and hysteria of Salem. But here's the twist, your choices decide who lives and who burns. Little Hope is based on Salem and their infamous witch trials. There are 4 communities called Little Hope in real life in Alabama, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. However, the town represented in the game is fictional, being located in Andover, Essex County, Massachusetts. As strange and foolish as they might seem to you in the present day, witch trials were a real thing back in the day. The 17th century Salem witch trials are the most popular, but there were others that occurred, including the ones in Andover. Though Little Hope takes place in a fictional town, it's still in the state of Massachusetts, where the Salem and Andover witch trials happened. The game also moves between various time periods, a prominent one being the 1690s, when the Salem witch trials transpired. Little Hope's cast has doppelgangers from the past who experienced the witch trials for themselves.
You survived the Man of Medan, so no doubt you discovered that the legend had a glimmer of truth to it. There are always repercussions.
At number 9, Outlast 2 drags you into a desert nightmare inspired by real cult horrors, from the Jonestown Massacre to the Ripper cult of Papua New Guinea. Pray the sins of the past don't rewrite your future. Outlast 2 is also inspired by real events, drawing heavily from the infamous Jonestown Massacre. More than 900 people, many of them children, died in a mass murder-suicide in 1978 by drinking cyanide-laced punch at the order of cult leader Jim Jones. The Rev Jim Jones, the charismatic leader of an American cult in the Guyanese jungle, ordered his followers to murder a U.S. congressman and several journalists, then commit mass suicide by drinking cyanide-laced fruit punch. Players take on the role of Blake Langerman, a journalist searching for his missing wife after a crash landing during an investigation. Outlast 2 features a more open environment, allowing for greater exploration and immersion in its nightmarish setting. The game doesn't shy away from its inspiration, even using the same cult name as the real-life tragedy. Players must navigate a terrifying world where reason has been abandoned, relying only on stealth and a camcorder for survival. Its dark themes and disturbing atmosphere ensure a gripping, nerve-wracking descent into madness. Number 8 hides a blood-soaked secret. Resident Evil Village channels the legend of Elizabeth Bathory, the Blood Countess accused of bathing in virgin blood. History's monsters? Sometimes they're real. You probably know Lady Dimitrescu, even if you've never played Resident Evil Village. This iconic evil mistress had many fans falling in love with her. But it's not as easy to accept a person's wicked acts when that person is real. Elizabeth Bathory was a noble woman who allegedly engaged in many acts of torture on young women before killing them. She's said to have bathed in her victims' blood, as well as performing other vampiric acts like biting their flesh off. Her husband is also said to have gifted her clawed gloves to help punish servants. Lady Dimitrescu is a noble woman who has similar gloves for a similar torturous purpose, on top of a vampiric nature. Her 3 daughters are also based on the servants who supposedly helped Bathory with her acts, 3 of whom were executed as a result.
I will devour all of you!
Number 7 takes you to the heart of Chernobyl's exclusion zone. This survival horror RPG forces you to confront the ghostly aftermath of the 1986 nuclear disaster, where radiation isn't the only thing that's toxic. Chernobylite heavily plays on its aftermath. The legend of the Black Bird of Chernobyl was something we heard about. The legend states that in the days leading up to April 26, 1986, that a supernatural creature was sighted in the sky over Chernobyl by many of the men in the control room. They also claimed to have seen this terrifying creature just before the explosion. Now it's become one of those fables that's difficult to track because it relies on the accounts of people who died due to radioactive contamination. The Black Bird has also become one of those fairly safe legends where, if you try to look for proof, it might not be available because the workers are dead, or maybe the sightings were never officially recorded. In fact, the main area you play in is a 3D, scanned environment of the real Chernobyl disaster's exclusion zone. You play as a physicist who was working in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant before the disaster. Chernobylite is a survival horror RPG where you have to gather resources and construct bases as you fight off enemies, both supernatural and human, as well as the environment itself. This game is probably the closest you can get to exploring the disaster's aftermath, without actually setting foot there yourself. At number 6, a harrowing walk through Italy's real-life Volterra Psychiatric Hospital, where lobotomies and electroshock treatments ruin countless lives. The town of light doesn't just scare you, it breaks your heart. Volterra Psychiatric Hospital, also known as Volterra Asylum, is a real place in Italy. It was notorious for the staff's horrendous mistreatment of patients and was shut down 90 years after its opening. The Town of Light is a psychological horror game that uses Volterra Psychiatric Hospital as its setting. In the game, you follow a teenage girl's point of view as you explore the hospital and witness events unfold through her eyes. The story can change depending on the choices you make. Though the Volterra Psychiatric Hospital in this game is a fictional version, the scenes in the game could be close to what real patients experienced and endured until the place shut down. Number 5's Fog? It's more than atmosphere. Silent Hill draws from Centralia, a town abandoned after an underground coal fire burned for decades. The real hell? It's still burning today. The Silent Hill games are known for their excellently ominous atmosphere, making you feel tense despite the town's desolation. If you've ever wondered how the developers came up with the setting of Silent Hill, the answer is that they were inspired by a real place. Centralia, Pennsylvania, used to be a regular mining town, but it was soon abandoned after a coal mine fire broke out. Now, it's pretty much a ghost town. If you went there, you might be able to feel how empty and foreboding Silent Hill felt to the game's protagonists. Supposedly, the fire in Centralia continues to burn even today. Number 4. In 1959, 9 hikers died mysteriously in Russia's Ural Mountains. Kolet resurrects the Dyatlov Pass incident. But beware, the truth is colder than the snow. If you're knowledgeable in true crime, you've probably heard of the Dyatlov Pass incident, where 9 students hiked to the Ural Mountains in Russia. They had seemingly vanished until they were discovered deceased months later under strange circumstances. Kolet is a survival horror game that has you retracing the hiker's steps as famous actor Sean Bean narrates your investigation. In Kolet, shadow monsters appear as you gather clues. They won't leave you to explore the mountains freely, chasing you as you look into the truth of the incident. The game puts an interesting spin on the events of Dyatlov Pass. Number 3's Pizza Party is deadly. The inspiration behind the bloodthirsty animatronics is a real murder case that happened in 1993 in Aurora, Colorado. On December 14, 1993, 4 employees were shot and killed, and a 5th employee was seriously injured at a Chuck E. Cheese's restaurant in Aurora, Colorado, United States. The perpetrator, 19-year-old Nathan Dunlap, a former employee of the restaurant, was frustrated about being fired 5 months prior to the shooting and sought revenge by committing the attack. In the game, you play as a security guard in charge of making sure everything goes smoothly every night. But when the place's iconic animatronics come to life, what you should really be worried about is yourself. Of course, the game wasn't inspired by real animatronics gaining sentience and killing people, but it just goes to show that dark events grounded in reality can inspire horror that could only happen in fiction. At number 2, Outlast exposes the CIA's real MKUltra experiments, a Cold War program that tortured patients with LSD and sensory deprivation. The monsters? They're wearing lab coats. Project MKUltra was a project conducted by the CIA in which they tested drugs and procedures meant to brainwash and mind control humans. The fact that this was a real event in history is disturbing enough, but Outlast takes inspiration from these events and amplifies them even further. You play as a journalist investigating an asylum filled with patients who were subjected to experiments similar to MKUltra. Needless to say, they're not in their right minds anymore and attempt to kill you at every turn. There are dead patients and staff alike within the asylum, and you have to come to the bottom of the investigation while dodging all the murderous inmates. And our number 1 horror isn't based on a crime, but a mind. Developer Matt Gilgenbach transformed his battle with OCD and depression into this psychological hellscape. The scariest stories aren't in history books, they're in our heads. Sometimes, it's not external factors that inspire your stories. This is the case with Neverending Nightmares, a psychological horror game inspired by the lead designer's struggles with his mental illness, as stated on the game's Kickstarter page. Matt Gilgenbach is fully transparent about how his battle with obsessive-compulsive disorder and depression are the inspiration behind the game. In Neverending Nightmares, the protagonist wakes up from a nightmare. Except he's not actually awake yet. You have to navigate the nightmarish world and dodge the symbolic creatures coming at you as you try to figure out what's real and what's just a projection of the protagonist's inner battles. These games demonstrate how real-life events and personal experiences can inspire compelling horror narratives. By intertwining fact and fiction, they offer players a chance to explore the darker facets of human history and psychology. If you need further assistance or have other requests, feel free to ask. Let us know in the comments, if you dare. Smash that like button, subscribe, and remember, sometimes truth isn't just stranger than fiction, it's deadlier.